Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Jonesin Show. I'm so excited to have you here today because we have a very special guest here. He is going to help us train our bodies to help you reduce pain, reduce stress, and save money potentially in the long run because you can heal yourself. You can make sure that your body can let you live your life to the max, do all the things you need to do. Our guest today is the owner of Xero Shoes. That's right. Sashen is here today to help us live our life to the max. Stephen, thank you so much for being here.
Well, A, thank you. And B, just to be clear, I am not the owner. My wife is the owner and I work for her. Pardon me. I got to make that go away. My apologies.
No worries.
Yikes. All right, now I'm going to set it to vibrate or off mode, airplane mode. You're on.
Perfect.
So anyway, I'm happy to be here and let the fun begin.
Oh, I absolutely love it. So let's dive into the story like most people have. So let's break into it. How did you get started with Xero Shoes, or your wife, since she's the owner of it? How did this all happen? What led you here?
So I'm 58 now. So about a little over 13 years ago, I got back into sprinting after a 30-year break. I stopped when I was in high school, and I loved it, except for the fact that I was getting injured pretty much constantly for the first 2 years. And then a friend of mine who's a world champion cross-country runner. Now I was in Boulder, Colorado, and the joke is everyone is a world champion something runner. It's crazy the number of Olympians we have who just, are there. And anyway, he said, try running barefoot, see if you learn anything from doing that about why you might be getting injured. Just so happened there was a bunch of people who got together that weekend for a barefoot run with this one coach. And we were running on grass and roads and trails and over wooden bridges. Now, I'm a competitive sprinter, okay? I run the 100 meters. I don't even take turns. I'm not sure how they work. So the longest I've ever run, not of my own volition, when I was forced to, is like maybe a mile and a half, and I did not enjoy one moment of that. That's an important prelude to this. So we do this barefoot run. I am so fascinated. I'm so enthralled, entranced by the experience of feeling my feet on the ground and experimenting with that. What happens if I run faster? What happens if I run slower? What happens if I run the same speed but move my legs faster or slower? What happens if I land on this part of my foot or that part of the foot? It was just naturally so engaging. And at the end of this run, someone had a GPS watch on, and I said, how far was that? She goes, that was a little over 5K. It's like, oh, what? So I could have kept going. We just stopped for time, but I was so into it. Now, the interesting thing, other than that, was I ended up with a blister on the ball of my left foot.
Okay.
Now, I have learned that many people in that situation would go, see, this is nonsense. I got a blister. I, on the other hand, went, how come my right foot is fine? That's interesting. And by the way, my left leg is the one that gets injured more often. So my next barefoot run was a week later. I had a gaping hole in the ball of my foot, but I'm thinking, let's just give it 10 minutes. Okay. If I can find a way to run that doesn't hurt, then I'm probably not doing the thing that caused this to begin with. So I go for that run. And for the first 9 minutes and 30 seconds, it was pure agony. I was thinking, all right, I'll just bail and then we'll try it again next week when I'm a little more healed. And then instantly something changed. Now I'll tell you what it is in a sec, but the more important thing is within literally one stride, my running got easier, faster. I felt lighter on my feet. My breathing relaxed. Everything got better. It went from excruciating to fun in one step.
Wow.
What happened was that as a sprinter, I'm used to landing on my toes, but what I was doing for whatever reason was I was what's called overstriding. I was reaching out and putting my foot way in front of my body. So it's like putting on the brakes every time you land. So I'm putting on the brakes when I'm landing on that part of my foot. And I stopped overstriding. I started putting my feet underneath my body more, using my muscles, ligaments, and tendons as the natural springs and shock absorbers they're meant to be. Okay. So that's what changed. And then over the next few weeks, I just kept doing more of that. And my running got better. I got faster. I'm a Masters All-American sprinter. So for men over 58 now, I'm one of the fastest guys in the country. It may be, there's not a lot of competition for this one, but you may be talking to the fastest 58-year-old plus Jew in the world.
I love it.
Not much competition. So anyway, this natural movement experience was so profound that I wanted it all the time, but I know there's certain places where, you know, they get mad at you if you're trying to walk in barefoot, and there's certain surfaces that are not great barefoot, frankly. So I knew about the Tarahumara Indians in Mexico. I knew about them in the past, but then also around that same time is when the book Born to Run came out from Chris McDougall, who talks about these guys and how they run hundreds of miles pain-free into their 60s, their 70s, their 80s, and they run in sandals made from scraps of tires strapped to their feet. So I did my version of that sandal, and I made a pair for me. I made a pair for my wife. Other barefoot runners started asking for them. It was one of those, you know, they tell two friends and they tell two friends thing.
Right.
And the last part of the story is that one day that coach from that first barefoot run said, I got a book coming out called Barefoot Running. And if you had a website for this sandal making hobby of yours, I could put you in the book. So I rush home and I pitch this incredible opportunity to my wife, who assures me that I'm a complete idiot and it won't work and it won't make any money and it's a waste of time and I'm a distraction from other things. And I said, yeah, all right, you're right. I won't do it. And then after she went to bed, I built a website. So the next day she kind of growls at me and I said, look, it's a case study, you know, for a search engine marketing business we were trying to start. I can outrank everybody in maybe 3 months. And I was completely wrong. It only took me 6 weeks.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
What we thought would be a car payment just instantly turned into our full-time job. And that was 11 years ago today. Actually, I'm just looking at the calendar. And that's when we launched the website. And so, since then, we've been able to help maybe 500,000 or so people discover the fun and benefits of natural movement with a complete line of boots, shoes, and sandals that people wear for everything from taking a walk to running ultra marathons.
That's what an incredible story to have that personal experience of yours of having injuries and then going to the barefoot running and getting injured, right? Having that blister, but then figuring out, okay, I'm not just giving up. I figure out what I need to adjust, where it is, and then the joys of it, and then adapting it as you saw fit by, you know, society saying, well, you got to wear shoes occasionally. And then there's surfaces going, I really rather not run on sharp rocks or other things like that, or whatever makes it. So
yeah, I mean, the simple thing, if we want to really pull back and extrapolate, is that more often than not, letting your body do what it's designed to do is better than any intervention you can think of. And the amazing thing is people ask me, you know, where's the proof for what you guys who are running barefoot or in minimalist shoes do? And I go, whoa. As long as there have been humans, the modern athletic shoe, you know, here's humans and here's how long the modern athletic shoe has been in use. Mm-hmm. So it's the last 50 years. We're not the intervention. They are. Ask them where their proof is, and they have none. The closest thing they have, Nike came out with a shoe recently. It's their React Infinity Run, and they advertise it as designed to reduce injury, as if any shoe was designed to increase injury. So right. That's the first part. But they said in an independent study that they designed and they paid for, but somebody else did, they said this shoe reduced injuries by 50% compared to another shoe. Now, the other shoe was their best-selling motion-controlled running shoe. And during the 12-week study, it's true. The new shoe injured 50% fewer people. And then you have to dig into the data. So the old shoe, over 30% of the people got injured in basically 10 weeks. The new shoe, only 14.5% got injured in about 10 weeks. This is kind of like me saying to you, hey, I want to buy you dinner tonight. Which restaurant do you want to go to? The one where you're going to get food poisoning 1 out of 7 meals or 1 out of 3 meals?
Wow. This is amazing how companies seem to work the system to their advantage, right? So they can market better and use it.
Look, I say this with a mixture of admiration and disgust. They're really, really good at it. They're really good at telling you a story that's simple enough that makes you go, oh, that must be good, despite the complete lack of evidence or the complete irrationality of it. So like Adidas, or if you want to be cool, by the way, it's Adidas. And if you want to be really cool, you just call it Adi, because it's Adi Dassler. It was his company. Anyway, Adi came out with a new foam, new cushioning a few years ago. They called Boost Foam. And they had a demo where they took like a 2-pound steel ball and bounced it off the Boost Foam and showed how bouncy it was compared to the other company's foam. Well, no one uses that other foam. I mean, that's just nonsense. But the more important thing is, yeah, that's really bouncy. You are not a 2-pound steel ball. So who gives a crap?
Right.
And oh yeah, and keep bouncing it and see how long the foam lasts. That's the other piece of the puzzle. So brilliant thing, because we have this idea cushioning must be good. Running hurts, cushioning is good. Except that if you run correctly, it doesn't hurt. It feels great. It's like that when I said that one stride, it went from painful to effortless and wonderful. It can be like that for all of us. Have you ever watched kids run?
I was a
It's
teacher for 9 years, so yes, I have, and it's incredible.
Yeah, tell me what you saw.
So as I'm watching kids run, I was a middle school, high school teacher, but when I was in elementary school working, I saw it even more so. I mean, the kids are just carefree. They're just running around, smiling, having the
Right.
time of their lives.
Right. And as a running coach, I can tell you they have perfect form until they get really used to padded motion control shoes.
Hmm.
So I mean, they do it for fun. They stop when they're tired. They start again when they're not. I mean, they laugh, they play, and it can be like that for all of us. In fact, if you see someone running and they look like they're unusually happy, odds are good they're either in bare feet or something like what we do.
Hmm. Interesting. Because I've run for a number of years. Well, let me back up. Before I started running for fitness and stuff, I was doing fitness programs. I was fairly fit, but I hated running. It was uncomfortable. I didn't enjoy it at all. And then I finally forced myself to get into it because I signed up for a relay race, right, from a friend of mine, the Ragnar Relay 200-mile race. Because
Right.
why not just jump in and do it? So I did, and I hated running until like the 10th, 11th run, and I go, okay, this isn't bad. So then I'm running and I'm feeling good about it. I still enjoy running. I've run, half marathons. I've done a half Ironman, stuff like that, and love doing those races. And what I've noticed with my shoes is I'm running, padding's fine. I'm not getting blisters. But then as soon as that shoe starts to wear out, right after 400 miles that they say somewhere in there, then I start getting blisters. So then you have to switch, or the thinking is to switch shoes. But I see my running friends go like, oh, I just hate running, especially when they're starting. It takes them how long to get into it? Is that because of the shoe that you believe is into it, or the form, or what can we do?
That's a really good question. And the answer is it's about the form, not the footwear, but the footwear informs the form.
Uh,
So there was a study by Dr. Daniel Lieberman at Harvard. He was in Africa, and there was a whole bunch of, most people run barefoot because they can't afford shoes, or they don't think they need them anyway because they don't. And so he has a video showing this one runner running in his bare feet, beautiful, perfect form, lands with his foot right underneath his body, lands sort of on the ball of the foot at the midfoot, heel comes down, and he's using the Achilles as the spring that it's designed to be. It's beautiful. Then they put a big, normal motion control shoe with an elevated heel on his foot. And because the heel basically just gets in the way where his foot would normally land underneath him, as it's coming down, it hits the ground in front of him. And so he's suddenly overstriding and heel striking. And when you land with your foot in front of you, you're pulling back to reaccelerate. After you put the brakes on by hitting the ground, you have to reaccelerate by essentially pulling your foot towards you. And when your foot is in front of you and you pull it towards you, that's when your hamstring is in the weakest position and your glutes are in the weakest position.
huh.
So that's where you're more likely to get injured. So the other thing Lieberman showed is that when you do land with your foot in front of you on your heel like that, I don't care how much cushioning you have, makes zero difference. Your leg is straighter and it sends all the force through your joints, through your ankle, through your knee, into your hip, into your back, all the way up to your neck. He calls it an impact transient force spike. When you're running barefoot or minimalist, when you're running naturally, it doesn't really matter what you're in. When you're landing with your foot underneath you, typically midfoot, better slightly forefoot. That doesn't mean the ball of your foot. That doesn't mean you just stay on your toes, but that's the point of contact. You're using the entire spring-like mechanism of your lower body, starting with your feet. Then it's pleasant. That force goes away, basically. Not the overall force, but there's like that impact thing goes away.
Right.
And you're using your muscles, your ligaments, your tendons, again, as the natural springs and shock absorbers they're supposed to be. So we have thousands of testimonials from people for whom running was painful before and now not, or who never ran before and weren't even planning to. But then once they started using their body and it felt good, they went, I think I'm going to go for a run. In fact, my favorite version of that, there's a researcher in Brazil, Dr. Sacco. She took a bunch of elderly women and put minimalist shoes on them and just said, just wear these, just let's see what happens. Now, what happened is for many of them who had knee osteoarthritis, their knee osteoarthritis went away because they weren't putting force into the joints. They were using their muscles, ligaments, and tendons to protect the joint. some of them, because, they suddenly became more mobile, became runners. They started running 5Ks in their 70s for the
Oh
first
my
time
God.
ever. So like, again, the Tarahumara, they run into their 60s, 70s, and 80s in basically bare feet, for hundreds of miles at a time. It's just, we're wired to be able to do this. And it's fun if you do it in a way that feels good. So that's what we're all about.
Finding a way to do it that feels good is always a win, right? As opposed to being
Yeah.
forced to do it. So let's say I want to get into running, or I'm not a runner and I want to get into running. I feel it's painful. I tried, I just don't know because of the shoes or my form's off. Should I get a running coach? Would that be the smart thing? Or should I try the minimalist shoe because that's going to help my body, or I'm going to realize what's right, what's not, faster or easier, or I don't know. Go
Yeah.
for it.
I'm going to sum up the last part of what you said. Should I get a coach or become my own coach?
Yeah,
And
thank you.
Lena likes to say that when you're wearing our shoes, your shoes become your coach, then you become your coach. So if you're going to find a coach, that's cool, because it's helpful to have a third party watching what you're doing to give you some cues and corrections, because many of us are not proprioceptively aware. We don't know where our body is in space. There have been a number of times where people have emailed me and they said, hey, the sole of your shoe is wearing out on the heel. Maybe there's something wrong with the rubber. I went, no, you're overstriding and heel striking. And they go, I don't do that. I'm a professional running coach. And, I use this pose method or chi running, or there are various things. And so I don't do that. I go, yeah, okay. Physics is physics. And the only way you get abrasion is by applying horizontal force. So I'm not going to argue with you. Why don't you send me a video? And this happened a few times where someone has sent me a video and I've had to show them the video in super slow motion for like 20 minutes till they admitted that, yes, in fact, they could see that they were overstriding and heel striking. And then each time, this is the next line they've said to me, yeah, but I don't do that.
Oh.
Dude, it's a video you just sent me of you. So, a lot of times we think we're doing something with our body and we're doing something different. I was a gymnast as a kid in high school. And one of the things in the compulsory gymnastics routine was you had to just put your arms parallel to the ground. It took us weeks to learn, this is parallel, not this, not this, not this. Because when you look out, parallel looks eye level, but that's not parallel. That's actually 3 inches too high. So there's all these things you need to learn. And again, it can be helpful to have a coach or to get video to watch that. But the fundamental thing, the becoming your own coach part, is that doing it right feels good, doing it wrong does not. So the recommendation that I give is find a nice, smooth, hard surface, because that's going to give you the most feedback. And the smooth part means you're not going to step on anything weird that could be hiding in the grass, for example. And besides, grass can be cushioning enough that it's as if you just took the cushion from your shoes and just stuck it on the whole planet. So you want feedback. Now, some people will say, whoa, we didn't evolve to run, on hard surfaces. And to which I say, you're wrong. Go and take a look at the places where we came from. And, hard packed mud is as hard as concrete. And it's got, crap sticking out of it that you could step on. And B, even if we didn't, quote, evolve to run on those surfaces, that doesn't mean we're not adapted to be able to. So find a nice, smooth, hard surface, go for a super short run, 20 seconds. Maybe at tops, it's going to be like 200 meters. And then see how you feel the next day. If you feel, basically, if it hurts, do something different until you're having fun. And if it hurts, there's 2 kinds of hurts. One is the next day, see how you feel. If you feel muscularly sore, like, you just did too much in the gym, that's cool. Just wait till you feel better, try again, and relax more, use less effort. Except you want to probably be a little more aware of your core, because you want to be essentially a tight spring, not a loose spring. If you feel like you hurt something, A, wait till you feel better, and then B, go out again, and you're going to want to do something different part, which is usually going to be making sure you're not overstriding and heel striking and landing with your foot in front of your body. You might want to pick up your cadence, the number of steps you take per minute, but not the speed that you're running, just because that cures, that can cure a lot of ills, just by picking up your cadence a little bit. It'll feel uncomfortable because you're used to moving your legs at a certain speed, but it's probably better to be moving at a slightly faster, having them move at a slightly faster speed. And then once you can do that 20 seconds and it feels good, wait again. And the next time do 30 seconds. And the next time do 40 seconds, et cetera, et cetera. And if you already have a running program, you're going to want to, how do I want to do this? You're going to want to increase the amount of time you're doing barefoot stuff as you decrease the amount of time you're doing.
I
I don't know how to do that with my
increase
hands.
one and decrease the other one.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Oh.
I know there's a, oh, wait, wait, hold on. It would look like this.
Oh, there you go.
No, wait, wait, hold on. It looks like, boy, that's hard to do. You got to try that. That's really,
Okay, so we're going up. For those of you who are listening to the podcast, we're trying to have one hand go up and the other one go down in front. That is tricky. You have to think about that.
Yeah, if I hadn't shown you first, it would have been harder.
Oh my God, yeah. I would not be able to figure that out. So thank you for showing that to me.
And this is going to sound crazy. Here's a related note. Cross your arms.
Okay.
Here, now do it the other way. Now do it the other way. Other hand on top.
That's the top. I remember you chatting about this because I heard you talk on the Darren Aline show, and I remember you talking about retraining your brain and retraining habits that you have in your life, right? And the arms crossing thing was one of them. I'm like, oh yeah, like wait, which one do I do normally? And so I made me think about it, and just becoming more aware of it, I started questioning everything I was doing. Like, oh, what pant leg am I putting on first? What arm?
Arm for a jacket. That's a big one. And the reason that I bring it up is, that if you're going to be learning a new movement pattern, it will feel awkward at first. And that quote awkward feeling is the feeling you get when you're laying down new neural pathways. It's a good sign. What happens for movement patterns is you try something, it feels awkward, you rest and your brain integrates it. And then the next time you're a little better. It's like, and if you think about that, that's miraculous. I mean, I tried something just for a moment and then somehow I got better while I was doing nothing. That's crazy, but that's how it works. And we forget that that's how it works. And then sometimes think that awkward feeling means something is wrong or that we're bad or stupid or whatever. It's just what it feels like in your brain when you learn something new.
I think we're so drilled into, from schooling and all that stuff, you have to do the hard work and that's how you learn it, as opposed to, okay, you do the work, you're trying it, but then it's also that rest, that relaxation moments where those pathways are formed. And then next time you come at it, you're smarter, a little better, and you can keep learning and keep growing.
Well, and with physical things, it's definitely about repetition and rest, because what you're doing is going from the conscious action of trying to do it to it becoming more and more unconscious. And it just takes repetition. Again, you're just laying down neural pathways that go further and further back in your brain. But for other things, like intellectual things, it is hard work. But we've all had the experience of like really struggling on a problem. And then while you're out taking a walk or as you're falling asleep, suddenly the answer hits you. And that's another thing that should, make you kind of go crazy. It's like you worked on the problem and then you aren't thinking about it. And then the answer suddenly pops into your head. It's like, hold on. Is there some inner evil genius that I don't know about who's working on this? I mean, it really, if you think about that, that should make you question everything about your life. Like, how did this happen? That there was something going on that I'm completely unaware of that came up with a solution to a problem that I couldn't consciously figure out. Wait, and if you really extrapolate, I'm not going to go there other than to say, if you really extrapolate, you come to the inescapable conclusion that we have no free will.
Wow, that is a rabbit hole we could go down. Holy cow, that is, I never thought.
I'm in.
But you're right. We go down, and I think about it. So I'm a musician as well, right? I was a choir director as my school gig and all that. And so like I hear about musicians and composers as myself, like, okay, put a sheet of music by your bed each night because, you wake up having this idea. My wife's a writer, same idea, right? You get an idea in the middle of the night. Well, why does that happen? Well, your mind's at rest. You're not consciously thinking about that problem. You're just relaxed and letting the neural pathways flow, all the thoughts go through your head, whatever you want to say.
Let's pause right there. Because the phrase, you're letting it happen. No, you're not. You're not doing anything. It's just happening.
Right. Good point. It's just happening and you're experiencing it. Lucky you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. 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 It's really, it really is crazy. Like here's another version of that. When you're talking, just realize that you don't know the next word you're going to say. Or at least you don't know what the end of the sentence is. It's like, how do you get there every time somehow? All this stuff can get very trippy very fast.
Okay, so I'm not the only one who realizes that. When I start talking, I'm going, I don't know exactly where I'll end up, but I kind of generally have a sense. I'll try to get there. We'll see if sometimes
sometimes you have a general sense. Sometimes it's totally surprising. But suffice it to say, you don't know. and that really should rock you to your core in a way that can be very, very entertaining.
Especially if you're open to it. I mean, I can imagine listening to this or watching this, from a perspective and going, well, these guys are crazy. Like, there's no way. No, 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 I got this. But then if I was open to it, and my big
Yeah.
thing in life is just being open to new ideas, new thoughts. And I'm listening to this going, okay, let me try this, try crossing my arms or thinking about my thoughts like, yeah, I really don't know what this is happening. Right. And
Well, here's one, just, just think of a city you've never been to.
okay.
Now, here's the question. Why did that one pop into your head? Did you have any idea it was going to show up?
Right. Not a clue. It was just floating around.
Yeah. So I was in this, we're going down this tangent a little bit, but I used to help run a workshop with a friend of mine who's a big deal therapist. And he and I are both very funny people. And things would happen and we would say something and it would get a big laugh. And finally someone said, how do you guys do that? And so I'd never thought about it before. I mean, I was a former professional stand-up comic. So I said, for some reason, I can hear a setup from a mile away. It just registers in my brain as a setup. And then I just wait. And there's like this big empty space. And then sometimes a punchline pops into my head and I somehow am able to analyze it almost instantly. And the moment that I have any clue that it's funny, then it just comes out of my face. But the important part is that I hear the setup and then I just wait and see what happens. And something happens or not, but there's no effort for it. It's a very, and that's a very peculiar thing again to realize.
I would imagine it's a very interesting feeling, like you're being perceptive of the world around you, the stuff that's happening, and then you're just being open to whatever's telling you, whatever's telling you.
But again, to be clear, that's even too much. I'm not being open. I'm not doing anything deliberately. Something just happened.
Right. Now that's a rabbit hole. That makes you stop and think for a long while. To stop and thinking. That's just
well. Look, here's another version of that. So for people who aren't watching, I'm sitting with my elbow on the arm of my chair and my forefinger just underneath my lip, like in a somewhat pensive thing. I didn't plan for that. I don't know how that happened.
It makes you
question. Oh, here's another version of that. Okay. Here's another one, just for the fun of it. I'm hyper aware of this one. Especially this happens at night, I will notice that an image of some food pops into my brain spontaneously, and I am practically unable to control myself from going and getting that food. That's how the craving occurs, is some image just pops up and then I am a robot to that one. It takes enormous effort to not go get it. Now that doesn't mean I'm binging on, a pint of Ben and Jerry's, which we've had a pint of Ben and Jerry's in our freezer for at least 2 years, because I don't really care, oh man, caramel rice cakes. Every now and then just that pops into my head and I have to get one. And the good news is, 40 calories, who gives a crap? So, right. But it's really, really interesting to watch. Or I had been trying to remember the name of somebody and I couldn't think of it. And I'm cutting a pepper and suddenly it pops in my head really loudly. And it occurred to me that if we didn't have the concept of subconscious, it's just as good of a story to say the gods just spoke to me, which is what people used to believe a couple thousand years ago. Right. I mean, it's completely consistent with that. Came out of nowhere, didn't sound like my voice. I mean, but what actually happened, because for whatever reason, I didn't have that concept of subconscious rolling through my brain at that time. It was shocking. I jumped in the air, dropped the knife. I mean, it's like, where did that come from? And then again, if you really pay attention, almost every experience we have is like that.
This is a fun rabbit hole just that we're going down. We'll get back to the shoes in a bit and all that, but
okay, why not?
But I love the idea of letting the gods speak to you. And I'm big into philosophy, and I'm really learning a lot and just enjoying being open or letting it speak to me and saying, okay, these miracles happened back then. Well, maybe they couldn't explain how it happened back then, but now we can through science, or we have different terms now, like subconscious. Well, the Lord spake spoke to me. Cool, Spake. I don't know who that was, but the Lord
Big, I
spoke to
like that.
me, and wow, I got this. Well, okay, but maybe it was your conscious or the universe, if you believe in the universe, which I am, a like big energy, like the energy was flowing to you, and that was whether you're open to it or it just happened. Boom, there you go. There's a thought.
It's, there's so many things that occur that we just write off as normal, that
Mm.
if you pay exquisite attention to them, would really um, affect you in some profound ways. You give me a flashback. I was involved with someone, and during a big chunk of the relationship, I was, always thinking, do I stay? Do I go? Do I stay? Do I go? I just wasn't sure if this was the right relationship. And um, suffice it to say, one night at 4 a.m, she told me she had slept with somebody, and I said, I got to take a walk. This is 3 a.m, 4 a.m, and I'm just walking down the Boulder Creek path, and I hear a voice that does not sound like the normal voice in my head, just say quite calmly but loudly, "Now you know."
There's your answer right there.
It was very common. Actually, it was funny. The next day, we called that therapist friend of mine that I mentioned, and he says, I don't recommend you do anything rash. I've dealt with thousands of these situations. Don't split up. Don't, have her move out of the house. Don't call off the wedding. Don't, just don't do anything for a while. And I said very calmly, yeah, I'm really clear. This is done. And there's a long pause. He goes, "Yeah, it was just an idea."
Oh, I love it. That's hilarious. Oh my gosh. Yeah, we could just keep going and chatting about this all day.
All right.
I love this.
But
We'll have to have you back on at some point, and we could just chat philosophy and share that. That would be
sure.
let's I don't know how we got here. Let's dive back into the shoe aspect of it and running
All right.
naturally, because you mentioned, okay, do I hire a coach? I talked about hiring a coach or be your own
Hire a coach,
and
become your
then
own coach. Yeah.
of how you're, pick the shoes and making sure it feels right and all that. I'm thinking, okay, does this heal your foot or like aches and pains or muscle things? Like I think of people who have really flat feet. Does this actually help them have proper feet if
So,
they've just been trained wrong?
I am not a doctor. I don't play one on the internet, but I will say a few things. There's research that demonstrates that if you just walk in a pair of shoes like ours, and I say it that way because the study wasn't done with our shoes. In fact, ours are, I would argue, better than the ones that were used in the study, but they weren't available then. This comes from Dr. Sarah Ridge at BYU. If you just walk in a pair of shoes that let your toes spread and your feet move naturally, basically minimalist footwear or good minimalist footwear, and that's a whole other story we can get into, your foot builds strength as if you've done an actual foot exercise program. In fact, the same as doing an exercise program. So she had 3 groups. Control group, they didn't do anything. Group that would just walk around and use these shoes, and a group that did a foot strengthening program. Those last 2 groups had the same amount of foot strengthening improvement. Now, they didn't explicitly mention things like arch height, which is predominantly genetic. I will tell you my experience is that I had lifelong comedy level flat feet, family joke level flat feet. I'd get out of a pool and it looked like a, big paddle, the water print. And then when I started using my feet naturally, then I developed an arch, not super high, but again, genetic. But I was at a chiropractic conference, and the guy running it said to the other chiropractors, if you have to pay Stephen $5 to have him let you touch his feet, give him $5, because you'll see they're flat-ish, but they're super strong. And that's the important part. Whether you have high arches or flat feet, strength and flexibility is what's important. And so similarly, there's a study, I can't remember if it's even come out yet, where they put arch support in the shoes of healthy athletes. And within 10 weeks, they had lost about 10% of the muscle mass in their feet. And that's seemingly should be obvious. Both of those should be obvious. Use it or lose it. Use your thing, something they get stronger. Don't use it, it gets weaker. Put your arm in a cast. It doesn't magically come out stronger 8 weeks later. Same thing with your foot. Keep it immobile, put it in a cast, put it in what we call foot coffins. They don't come out stronger. What a shock. So And again, if you look on the reviews on our website, you hear stories like this over and over and over. My wife's line is, there's enough shoe companies in the world, you don't need another one, unless your shoes change people's lives. And we hear that so often from so many people, not because of what we're doing, but because we're getting out of the way to let you do what's natural, to use your feet naturally. Your feet are supposed to bend and flex and move and feel. That's a really important one. And if you don't let them do that, all that function tries unsuccessfully to move upstream to your ankle, your knee, your hip, your back. So if you let your feet do their job, the rest of your body can do its job. And that feeling thing is critically important, because you have a quarter of the nerve endings, more nerve endings in the soles of your feet than anywhere but your fingertips and your lips. Clearly, your brain is looking for information about what you're stepping on or in to know how to use the rest of your body correctly. If you don't give it that info, then your brain shuts down. And part of what it's losing is information that you need for things like balancing, let alone, running and hiking and dancing and all those other things you do. Balance is a big deal. It's the number one cause of people falling down, breaking their hip, and dying when they're elderly, which my dad did, 5.5 years ago, tripped over a little thing, had crappy balance, broke his hip. 2 weeks later, that was the end. So I know I say that somewhat cavalierly, but it's been 6 years and we didn't get along that well. So, so it's kind of easy, but this is an important thing. This is a multi-billion-dollar problem, and we hear from elderly people all the time. I started wearing your shoes, and we had heard from a guy very early on. I was looking for these magic vibrating insoles, and I couldn't find those. So I found your blog post saying you don't need magic vibrating insoles to stimulate your feet to get better balance. Just take off your shoes and go for a walk. He said, I started doing that 2 weeks ago, and I just threw away my walker.
Wow.
So, and we hear things like that all the time. I'm not making any promises. I'm not making any medical claims, but the simple thing is, again, like we said at the very beginning, using your body naturally is most of the time better than any other intervention. There's some things where you're doing extreme stuff and you do need help. If you're, running, if you're playing soccer on a muddy pitch, having a big cleat is going to be better than barefoot. Right. That's cool. I'm a sprinter. I train in spikes, or I race in spikes, not barefoot, because I need that extra traction on the ground. So specific use cases. But there's ways of even addressing those use cases where you're still letting your foot have as much natural movement as possible.
I love that idea, and that it's able to help people heal themselves, right? Like you talked about the gentleman who was using a walker and then did the practices that you suggested just to grow balance and strengthen your foot, because we think of, okay, we got muscles in our arms, our legs, our chest, back, whatever, but we don't think about the muscles in our toes and our feet that keep us going, along with the flexibility in there. As you say, we throw a foot coffin on them and we think, well, it's solved, but you're not strengthening it and using it to what it's for, and that's allowing your body to have the balance, have the flexibility, and be able to be less injured, which is huge.
To enjoy your life, to move around, to do, look at elderly people in cultures and places where they don't have electricity or running water or toilets, and check out the balance of the elderly people. Check out the mobility of the elderly people in that community versus the ones here in big, thick orthopedic shoes, where it looks like they're going to fall on their face with every step, versus the Aboriginal or indigenous tribes, where they're still active members of that society. They're hunting, they're fishing, they're gathering, they're building. I mean, they're doing everything. So night and day.
It's amazing when you see the differences. And yeah, I remember you mentioning that before in that other show, and I'm looking at it going, oh my gosh, I never put two and two together directly like that. Think about the footwear, because I've looked at them and go, how are they so mobile when our elderly, our wise folks are not as mobile as those people? What can we do to change that? And the footwear is the base point, right? It can change everything.
Yeah.
So I'm going to throw this question out here for you. I think it was right before we launched the show, or even when we started it, I don't remember now. It's been too much of a fun conversation. I mentioned, okay, I used to wear Converse a lot, and I thought that would be decent, right, because it had flat. There was nothing there. It was pretty much like, I would think, it had cushioning, but like a flat floor. So that would be better for my foot if I'm thinking minimalistic style. Yeah. but I saw you cringe a bit, and so let's talk about that.
Well, let's be clear. I did more than cringe a bit.
Yeah, he did. I'll be honest.
So if you think about what's going to make a natural shoe, if you're going to wear shoes or sandals, something that's going to let your foot do is something as close to natural as possible. Wait, I'm going to grab one, but I'll describe it for people who aren't watching. That flat thing that you described on the Converse or the Vans, that's great. It's a good start. You don't want to elevate your heel because that messes with your posture. Okay. It sends your hips forward. You have to kind of lean back. It can put some strain on your lower back. But that's just one thing. One of the first things you want is a toe box that's shaped like a human foot. So most toe boxes are narrow and pointy, which is not what your feet look like unless you've been shoving them into shoes like that for a long time. So your toes, if you think about it, if I said drop and do push-ups, you'd spread your fingers out. That's what your toes should be able to do as well. Pardon me. So if your shoes aren't letting your toes spread a little bit and bend and flex and move, that's a problem. The other thing, a lot of shoes now and that's really the thing with the Converse shoes or the Vans. The other thing is, again, that feeling. You want to get feedback from the ground safely. You don't want to get too much, but you need to get enough. And those shoes are typically too thick to give you enough feedback. So they're like the Converse in particular. It's a pretty thick, what's the word I'm looking for? Can't find the adjective. It's a rubber sole. There's another word. Anyway, I lost it, but it's really cutting off a lot of that feedback. And that's really, really important because when you're getting the feedback, that's going to help you identify what you're doing right or wrong and allow you to naturally change. Because again, doing it wrong hurts, doing it right feels good. And if you give your brain the right feedback, it will encourage you to unconsciously make changes to the way you're moving to get away from the pain, basically. And you don't want it to be painful, but that slight unpleasantness is enough if you are attentive to making change. Like back to my blister story, when I went out on that next run, I wasn't paying attention to the blistered foot to figure out what to do different. I was paying attention to the good foot, figuring out what's it doing. And then my blistered foot kind of came along for the ride. So that's the other thing. If for some people, there's a body work, or I don't know what else to call it, a body work method called Feldenkrais technique. And the basic idea in Feldenkrais, you come in with a pain in your left arm. The first thing they have you do is all this stuff with your right arm to get the right arm nice and smooth, just to make sure you know what's going on. You don't try to do a no pain, no gain thing. It's all gain. So you pay attention to the good side, and then you bring in the quote bad side, and it kind of learns from the good side. And then, so same idea. The other thing with natural movement footwear, so don't elevate the heel, low to the ground, because that's also good for balance and agility in addition to feedback. Wide toe box. You want something lightweight as well. The lighter, the better. And then many shoes have what's called toe spring. They elevate your toes, which also messes with your gait because it's not letting your toes go through the natural range of motion. Right. So flexibility is super important. So here I can roll up all of our shoes and sandals. Wow. And those are the key things. Dr. Irene Davis at Harvard, she's identified what she calls minimalist and shoes versus partial minimalist shoes. And I accused her of being politically correct because what she would want to say is real minimalist and fake minimalist. And she did not deny that. And so the real minimalist, the ones that can give you the kind of benefits that she's seen in her lab, are what I just described. And there's quote minimalist shoes from even from big shoe companies that pointy toes, elevated heel, too narrow. There are a number of barefoot shoe companies, and I'm putting air quotes around barefoot, that have come out lately that are flexible and flat, but pointy and thick. And that, you got to do the whole thing. You can't go halfway. Right. And some people, by the way, will think, if I've been in a big, thick padded shoe, I just need to go slowly down to something minimalist or barefoot. That idea was invented by big shoe companies who were terrified in 2010 that nobody would ever wear a running shoe again. And so they came up with these, transitional shoes, but the transitional shoes are not good. The real transition plan is like what we said before, go in cold turkey, just switch, but just build up very slowly.
So you just go cold turkey, try it, but then not long distance. You're not necessarily doing 3, 4, or 5 miles on it. You're doing 30 seconds.
20 seconds. Yeah.
Right. And then slowly build up from there.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I'm an entrepreneur. I have my own business, and a lot of people, they talk about these standing desks and, all that stuff because sitting is not good for you, which I'm doing right now, which I shouldn't be doing. But I noticed for me,
Sitting is a fine thing that all humans can do. Now,
oh,
just being immobile is a whole different story,
right.
but there's nothing inherently wrong with sitting. It's just, if you're not moving and you're on your butt all day. I was in a bunch of legal meetings 2 weeks ago. We were literally sitting for like 10 hours a day. It was miserable. And yeah, you could stand up every now and then. But yeah, the idea that sitting has become like nuclear radiation is kind of crazy. But anyway, back to standing desks and standing, et cetera, you were saying.
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah, trust me, I love sitting too, just so we're clear. And it's finding that balance there. But I notice once I stand up for some time and, I wear socks, and that might be it generally, since I work from home, which is pretty nice, that my feet still get tired. Is that something just because I'm not used to it? I need to build up the endurance?
Yes, that's exactly it. And look, even if you've built it up, like with any muscle that you're using, if you put more, if you do more with it than you're currently trained for, you'll get sore. That's just the effect of using things more than you're already ready for. And it's again, back to the whole thing of learning. That's the way you get stronger. You don't get stronger by lifting a 1 pound weight over and 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 over. You've got to, at some point, bump it up to 1.25 pounds. You gotta give your body a new thing to try. And you will. So I did this pretty intense kettlebell workout this morning. I'm toast, man. But what's happened is that by giving yourself this, it's called hormetic stress. It's stress that actually is ultimately good for you. Mm-hmm. That's what tells your body, ooh, I got to get stronger. Ooh, I've got to, not even I got to get fitter, but by putting yourself through that, that's what helps. So my resting heart rate has gone down, not from running, but from doing very short bursts of things, like 30-second bursts of things for 25 minutes. Because it just puts a different kind of strain. Like the running fast thing, that's just what I'm already used to. Right. But doing the short 30-second burst for 25 minutes, my body wasn't used to that. Waste me. At the end, I can't get off the ground for 10 minutes. I don't know why I love that, but I do.
Trust me, I get that feeling 100% with my workouts, and it's a variety, that spice of life of mixing it up. Like I like running, but then I also love lifting weights and doing HIIT and low intense cardio things, because it's all different. It's all mixing it up.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. You're right. Using your muscles in your feet. It's like any other muscle. You got to train it and build it up.
Yeah. Yep. And the thing that people forget is you can get stronger at any age. There's great research showing people in their 90s, they put them on a weightlifting program, they build muscle mass, they get stronger.
And that's, it seems like something that's not taught in Western society, right? The older you get, the weaker you get. Oh, I got these aches and pains. Well, that doesn't necessarily have to be the case, right? You can still build up your strength.
I'm 58. That's the case.
Okay. I take it back. I'm 34. So, I mean, okay.
I mean, what happens, look, I'm going to put in air quotes the word favorite. My favorite thing is when I wake up and realize that somehow I pulled a muscle while I was asleep. I mean, what? I wasn't even dreaming that I was running. I don't know what happened. So there's, bodies are complex things. They don't always work perfectly. Stuff happens. It takes longer to heal the older you get. There's no question about it, but that doesn't mean it's what you can do. I guess the best way I can say it is they tracked sprinters over time. And once they get to about 60, things start to kind of fall off a cliff a little bit. And once you get 80, that cliff is just, you hit the edge and things really get bad fast, or can. What you're really trying to do at a certain point is just slow down that curve of decline, which you can do very significantly. You're never going to be running like you were when you were 20, when you're 60, 70, 80, but you can do way better. I mean, again, I'm a Masters All-American sprinter for whatever reason. Big chunk of that's genetic. In fact, it's funny. I was at the World Masters Track and Field Championships in Finland, this is 11, 12 years ago. And I came up to everyone that I could who was 85 plus, and I asked them a simple question. I said, nature or nurture? And every one of them had the exact same answer. They said, I'm here because of genetics. I'm winning or losing because of training.
Wow.
It was great.
That's, yeah, great advice, or knowing that, right? I mean, you can do so much with your genetics, but then you got to keep it going, right? To
Yeah.
place or do that. All right, I have three questions for you to wrap up our interview here. I threw out to the Jones and Four crew, our tribe, that I was going to have you on for an interview, and they had some questions for you.
All right, here we go.
So first one is more of a business style question, and that is, with people addicted to the standard sports shoe, lots of support, all that good stuff, that's not good for us. How do you sell the minimalistic idea of your shoe?
It's a great question. Can I give you a medium long answer?
Go for it.
All right. So Dr. Irene Davis at Harvard, she and a couple of other people do an event they call the Science of Running Medicine. And Irene, for physical therapists, they need continuing education units. Irene does this unbelievably lucid, step-by-step, brilliantly articulated presentation showing how the modern athletic shoe causes the problems that it claims to cure, and that getting into something minimalist cures those problems. Could not be better. I said to her, after you're done, the 150 people in that room should run out to my booth and tackle me and steal all my stuff, but they don't. Half of the room comes up and talks to me, and then half of them actually get hip to what we're up to. And so 75% just ignores it. Why? And the answer is, when people make what they think are rational decisions, when they come to a belief that they lock onto, you can't talk them out of that belief with more information. And the 75% of the people in that room think that the shoe that they're wearing, that may have been recommended by a 20-year-old in a shoe store who told them what to wear because he was told that by the company who makes that shoe. However it is they came to this seemingly rational decision, and then they've often reinforced it by recommending that shoe to other people. All your information, they just dismiss it. They just, say, well, that's too complicated. That's wrong. Doesn't apply to me. Doesn't apply to my clients. This is what human beings do. We're wired to lock onto beliefs and not change them because it takes a lot of energy to rethink something. And this whole thinking process evolved around the question, is that thing going to eat me or can I eat it? And if you guess wrong, you're dead. And you don't want to have to keep figuring that out every time. You want to come up with a heuristic, come up with a very quick way of making that decision. And you can be wrong and still survive. That could be a bunny that, has a broken leg and you could have eaten it, but you see the grass and you think it's a saber-toothed bunny and you run away and you survive. And then you pass your stupid genes off to your offspring. So since just telling people things doesn't work, there's two things that I'm trying to do. One is, maybe three. One is remind people of what it was like when you were a kid. What it was like on a hot, warm summer day when you'd kick off your shoes and go for a run and feel the grass underneath your feet or the sand between your toes or the water around your ankles, and how much fun that was, and let you know you can have that now, anytime. The other is pointing out simple things that aren't about saying, hey, your shoes are wrong, but just things like, I always ask people, do your feet feel better at the end of the day than they did at the beginning of the day? And they go, no. I go, well, that's because you're not letting your feet do what's natural. Your shoes are getting in the way. And they go, oh. Or I say things like, your feet are supposed to bend and move and flex and feel. Do your shoes let you do that? They go, no. I go, your foot is shaped like this. And now take a look at your shoe and tell me if it's shaped the same way. And they go, no. So it's basically creating cognitive dissonance, if we want to get into it. It's having people realize that what they've now seen with their own eyes is different than what they were led to believe without investigating. And they have to reconcile that some way. Some will come over to, some will stay on the dark side. Some will, join the alliance. And the third thing, and the biggest one really, is just giving people the experience. And so the challenging business goal we have as a bootstrapped small company is to find ways of giving the people the experience of wearing a minimalist shoe without going broke doing it. If I could just send out shoes to everybody, I would do that, because it would get a large percentage of the population to have this experience and go, oh man, that's way better. And even that, you have to couch it a little bit, because someone's immediate experience might not be awesome. It might take a little bit of time to work into it. But then after a couple of weeks, you realize, I just put on what I thought were my comfortable shoes before, and they feel like bricks. I can't wear those. So that's the second part. And then there's actually a third part, or fourth part, that it was in my brain and then it totally fell out. Giving people the experience, telling them the things that are obvious. I don't remember. There's maybe a fourth one, but it might
It'll
pop in
come
my
to you
head.
as you're slicing a pepper.
Absolutely. I got to go buy some peppers.
I love it. So not necessarily the education aspect of it, although that can be part of it, but more making
All of this is
question things.
all of this is education, but education isn't just dumping facts at people. It's giving people information in a way that forces them, no, I don't like that word, that encourages, elicits, gives people the opportunity to discover something that they hadn't paid attention to before and see how that fits in with their experience of reality. Again, cognitive dissonance is things like, this is my favorite cognitive dissonance story. This was an anti-smoking campaign in Thailand. Somebody walks up to a person who's smoking, facing away from the camera, and they say, "Can I get a light?" And the person turns around and starts lecturing the person with the camera about why they shouldn't smoke and how bad smoking is, which sounds weird because they're sitting there with a cigarette in their hand. But then you pull back and you see that the person who asked, "Can I get a light?" was like a 7-year-old kid with a cigarette. And so they're saying, this is horrible, it's going to kill you, don't do it. And then the kid hands this person a piece of paper that said, "If that's the advice you're giving me, why are you still doing that yourself? Why aren't you following your own advice? And here's a smoking cessation hotline number." And, the response to that went through the roof. So if you give people the right opportunity to investigate reality, reality will win.
Wow, I love that. Love the connection with all that. So thank you. Makes me think a lot about just life in general and what we can do to really help people live their life to the max through different ways.
Well, look, my subversive plot is that we're using this just to help people become better thinkers.
Right. And that's,
really,
that's what the goal of life is, right? To get the most of it and think through more and gain more knowledge and help others, in my opinion.
Works for me.
So, okay, second question. I got to get focused again. I get so sidetracked. How do you come up with the different designs? You have sandals, which are sandals, right? And then you have boots and shoes, different designs in them. How do you come up with different designs?
It's a combination of 3 things. One, we have a design team, a guy who's been developing footwear for 40 years, a guy who's new to the game, and me and our factories and everybody's involved in the equation who is around in the company. Also, we just get recommendations and suggestions from people, and we play with those and see how we can take those ideas and make them ours, make that a Xero shoe idea, not just a shoe idea. And the third way is that things just pop into your head. So I used to, especially when we only had sandals, I would spend an inordinate amount of time sitting in the hot tub we had at the house that we were living in then, just thinking up lacing systems and ways of tying knots and all the things that were required for that do-it-yourself sandal kit that we were selling. And as a result, I ended up with a couple of patents for sandal lacing systems. I don't think anyone had come up with something new in 5,000 years. And so some of it is just noodling around. And some of it is thinking about, one of the things that happened is I spent time in the lab with a guy named Dr. Bill Sands. He used to work for the US Olympic Committee, just watching people move and thinking, how do we let them continue to do that, but in the other context where they need some other thing, like a little bit of protection or whatever it is. So it's just an inquiry process. Put all that together and then constrain that by the amount of money we have, the amount of time we have, the amount of products that we already have, right. What we need to fill out the product line, et cetera. So a bunch of things involved.
I love the process, talking to people and your customers and everyone and making it all happen.
Well, and that's a huge part of it. Like when we were just a do-it-yourself sandal kit, people said, "That's cool, but I'm not going to make my own." So we came up with a way of doing a ready-to-wear sandal. That's cool, but I don't like that style. So we came up with a different style. That's cool, but I need something for when it's cold or the office. And we came up with our first shoe. That's great, but I need a running shoe. So there's a lot of that happen as well.
Well, that's huge and great for your customers and great for you and everybody else that benefits.
Yeah.
Third and final question from the tribe is, what model would you suggest for a narrow foot? I don't know why they have a narrow foot or if they're born with it, but.
Well, one thing I can say, so foot shape exists on a bell curve. There's people at either extreme of like really narrow, really wide, or really high volume, really low volume, or, really high arch, really low arch, and every combination thereof. You can't make something that works for everybody, sadly, but you can do the best you can. So One idea is our do-it-yourself sandals, or like our Genesis sandal, which if you have a super narrow foot, you can trim it to fit your foot perfectly. The other thing is if you're a man with a narrower foot, you can try some of the women's styles. If you're a woman with a wider foot, you can try the men's styles, which are typically a little wider, because statistically, men's feet are slightly wider than women's feet. Women's feet have a slightly different volume, slightly narrower heel. Not true for everyone, but just, we're working with that bell curve, those statistics. And we have built into our shoes this interesting lacing system that I invented because I made it up, where it comes from around the heel up into the instep, and then around the midfoot as well. It's these pieces that are not attached to the shoe that you can sort of cinch up independently and hold your foot in place. So even if your foot is narrower than the shoe, it can hold your foot comfortably, and then you have that extra room in your toes, which eventually starts to become really, really pleasant.
So at first that might be because if you're not used to having your toes separate, right? They're like that. They're together, but they should be able to separate, and that just might take time to get used to.
Yeah.
Awesome. I love it. I really appreciate you being here, sharing all your knowledge and our great chats for myself and for the tribe. So thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Where can people learn more about you, Xero Shoes, and all that good stuff?
Shockingly, at our website. So if you go to xeroshoes.com, that's Xero shoes.com. Although if you accidentally go to Zero, it will redirect you to Xero. That's a whole story. Or of course on social media, either /Xero Shoes or @Xero Shoes, wherever you happen to be.
Perfect. And folks, we will have links for those things in the show notes. If you're interested, you just go to spencermjones.com, find this episode under the Jones and Forrest Show, and you can get all the links, all that good stuff to social media, to the website, and find the perfect Xero shoe for you. Stephen, thank you so much. I truly appreciate you and your time and everything. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks.
All right, everyone. Have a great day. Go get yourself some Xero shoes and keep living your life to the max. Hey, Spencer Jones here. I just want to butt in real quick. I really hope you enjoyed that interview with Stephen Sashen. I know, I loved it. It was so much fun to talk about our feet, shoes, philosophy, and all that. And I really hope that this interview helps you live your life to the max. If you are interested in getting your own pair of Xero shoes, awesome. I am so pumped. They are absolutely amazing, and I would love to get you in a pair of them. Now, we do have an affiliate link for them, and that's open on my website. So you can go to spencermjones.com, go to Jones and Forrest Show, find this episode and do that. Or if you just want to make it faster, go to spencermjones/episode 53, and we'll take you there. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day. Keep rocking it. And as always, keep living your life to the max.